All right, welcome back. Let's get into our panel discussion for the evening. Now, tonight, we're asking you, what do you make of Northwest businessman Suleiman Carrim's testimony at the Madlanga Commission? You can send us a WhatsApp and to air your views, in fact, on the number on your screen, which is 072-110-5584, or you can also give us a call on 010-594-6010. But joining us is independent crime and violence analyst Dr. Chris de Kock, as well as governance expert Professor Theo Venter. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this evening. I want to start with you, Professor Venter, about the extension that the President has granted to the Madlanga Commission. Obviously, this was expected given the amount of work that the Commission still has to do.
Yes, and I think there are two very important points here with the extension. Like we've seen with the first extension, the interim report was delivered on time by the Madlanga Commission. So in that sense, I think they get a good grade. And with the next extension to August of this year, there will also be a second interim report at the end of May. And I'm expecting, like with the first interim report, there will be some recommendations, like they've done with the first interim report, for government to look at, or at least the South African Police Service to follow on. And I think there will be more people mentioned in the second interim report. I think they need some time because, as we've seen, and that we will probably discuss, there are some difficult customers at the moment. I think of Brian Mogotsi and I think of Suleiman Carrim. That's not making it easy in terms of time management for the Commission. Therefore, I think the extension is a valid one.
Yeah, let me come to you, Dr. de Kock, because, I mean, another 5-month extension means that there will be, obviously, questions around the cost. Are we still sitting at the same cost that will cost the Commission, or will it extend? I mean, at this particular point, it's unclear whether or not the Commission will need more money, but certainly these are the questions that South Africans will be asking.
Well, good evening to the viewers. But I think, look, I mean, with all of these extensions, and from now to August, and maybe later there will be another extension, it's actually unrealistic to think it will stick to the original budget. I think there will be more money spent on this. But let me say immediately, if I think of the Commission during the past 6 months, and I think of the ad hoc committee in the past 6 months, I think it was worth the money. I really think it's worth the money. I really think we must come to the truth about what is happening in the South African Police Service, how deep the rot goes, and this must be cleaned. I mean, this is something that really have to be addressed. And fortunately, and I think Professor Venter already referred to that, we had a situation that there was names mentioned in the first interim report in December. And I'm certainly there will be more names added in the May report. And different from the Zondo Commission, at least, we see names mentioned. We see further investigation by SAPS into these names. And hopefully soon we will see that cases are being opened and that these people start to appear in court. So parallel with the Commission, parallel with the ad hoc committee, but especially because of the work of the Commission, we see some real action.
Yeah, Dr. de Kock, you touch on the referrals that were made by the Commission and the President appointing a special task team. We know that obviously the work in that regard has been ongoing, but also the NPA has a new head, which means that while everybody is trying to push for the completion of this commission, the NPA also has a job here to look at the recommendations and make a decision speedily, might I add, on whether or not they'll be prosecuting.
Yeah, indeed, that is the case, and hopefully the evidence will be of such a nature that they will actually start with proceedings on certain of these individuals.
Yeah, and I want us to move on, Professor Venter, on the next issue that we saw play out today. Kasim's lawyer, Advocate Premid, really is being found in a situation where there's a back and forth and tensions are flaring up with the Secretary of the Commission, raising questions really about the conduct of legal professionals in this particular commission, whether or not cameras are on and whether or not the commission is listening to evidence. Obviously, this conduct follows what we saw last week with name dropping and Treasury having to release a statement. But obviously, this puts the spotlight on legal practitioners and their conduct.
Well, it's not only legal practitioners, because I think we've seen this advocate, he's playing an interesting game with the commission. But we've seen, while we're talking about the ad hoc commission as well, not necessarily tonight, but we've also seen role players there, such as Sullivan and Brian Mogotsi, and I can mention several others, that has made it difficult for proceedings to flow like the commissions or the committee planned them. And this is a big challenge to the commissions to manage these kind of situations, because a lot of these antics are not without cause, they're not without purpose. I think Karim must have seen the commission already in November 2025. It's only now that he's appearing before the commission. So if you've got a legal team, and I was watching today, there are 5 or 6 people in that legal team. That means it's a formidable legal team. But I think following today and listening to the ad hoc committee last week, with this Madlanga Commission, I think Chris and I are of the opinion that this is a worthwhile investigation and that they will provide us with a report in time. When I look at the ad hoc committee, where you've got 10, 11 political parties, some very, very strong players on the side of Parliament, how they are going to get a document prepared for Parliament in which all of these guys agree to, I don't know. I've got more hope for the Madlanga Commission.
Yeah, and to you, Dr. de Kock, I mean, we also saw the commission having to make a ruling on his application to have his testimony done in camera. This, of course, was declined, obviously, but this is a witness who raised issues about, security and safety and death threats. But the evidence leaders pointing to the fact that they have looked at the evidence that he is going to give, and nothing really suggests that his life may be in danger, but also saying that there was witness protection that was offered to him, which he declined. Do you view this as an attempt to delay the proceedings, or was an attempt to delay the inevitable?
I, right from the beginning, said, whenever I was interviewed on Mr. Karim, that I think he didn't want to appear. He really didn't want to appear. And I must say, I think his legal team, that massive legal team of his, very formidable, I must also repeat, I think they advised him not to, to try all kinds of things. First, they went to the court to get, to stop this whole thing. And then when they failed there, he came with other excuses. And then it was an extension of when he's going to give evidence. And then the last one was, I want to give it in camera, and I can even dictate who will be present in camera and who will not be there. I think this legal team, to say it, they sound to me a little bit arrogant. They really seems to try and disrupt the commission, and also to cause some suspicion from the public on this commission. But I must say, I think they've just get the opposite, actually. Today, when that thing broke out, that thing in the committee or in the commission, the altercation there, immediately I think the public see through this whole legal team, and I think the sympathy is on the side of the commission, because I can see nothing in this commission where they were unsympathetic to anybody who came and give some evidence at the commission. I think they handled them professionally, excellently. And I think if Mr. Karim came there right from the beginning and did his word, I think it would have been finished long ago, and there would have been no special situation.
Yeah.
I think really his team is not doing him a favor.
Yeah, let's go to the evidence that he gave now. I want to come to you, Professor Venter. I mean, some are suggesting that he's seemingly painting himself as a victim to all the allegations that have been leveled, against him in particular. What do you make of the evidence that he's given so far?
Yeah, you're quite right. He's one of a few that presented themselves actually as victims of crime, or they were misled by some of the big role players in the crime syndicates. But there were a few questions that he couldn't answer satisfactorily. For instance, there was a question to him, why, if you receive X amount of money, you must pay a small amount to Mr. Maumela? And the commission put it to him, Kat Matlala could have paid him directly. Why are the payments happening through you to him? That means you, Mr. Karim, are a conduit of some kind. So Karim had all kinds of explanations, but he couldn't answer that question absolutely correctly, because I think what we see here, despite he's playing victim, there's a statement or a saying in English, there are honor among thieves. And I think we see some of these things, because as they played today, as the evidence went on, Tembisa Hospital came up. The murder of Bukaran, Diokaran came up. The money that was stolen by Kat Matlala and all these things. And I think, you see, commissions, when they ask these questions, and very often it happens in cross-examination in court as well, they know the answer. They have certain ideas of where they're going and what the answers are. Now they put questions to you. Let's make it simple for the audience. You drive a red car, but you claim to drive a green car. And then they ask you about your car and you provide the wrong color. And then they, of course, know what's going on. So a lot of these questions are based upon facts that the commission already have. Therefore, a lot of the money that Chris and I spoke about earlier on is about paying investigators, paying legal people within the commission to do in-depth investigation. So when the evidence leaders are asking questions, they've got a fairly good idea of what's going on and where they're going, and your evidence is really a test whether you are telling the truth or not.
All right, gentlemen, I want you to hang 10 because I want us to take a quick ad break, because when we come back, we'll continue with this panel discussion looking at the evidence that was heard today at the Madlanga Commission. So stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for choosing to stay with us. This is Newsfeed PM, the late edition. I'm Linda Mnisi standing in for Katlaho Msomi. Let's continue here. Northwest businessman Suleiman Carrim was asked about purchase orders that weren't given to him. Now, he appeared before the Madlanga Commission today.
What he was complaining here about, having purchase orders being withheld. So his cry was about the purchase orders not being given to him. He wanted to deliver, and the reason they were holding the purchase orders was to sabotage him. That's what he believed. So he thought if he could get the minister's ear, he could say, why am I not getting purchase orders? I need to deliver. The guys are holding my purchase orders, and I need to deliver on this contract.
So the plan was that a letter would be drafted by Mr. Mokgotsi, filled in part by Mr. Matlala, sent back to you. Mr. Matlala believed that you would then send it to the minister to sort out his problems and get him paid. You believed that Mr. Mokgotsi would send it to the minister and sort out problems with payment on the contract. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you were hoping that through Mr. Mokgotsi's influence, the minister would intervene in an operational matter at SAPS to ensure that Mr. Matlala got paid.
Brown gave us the impression, yes.
No, I'm asking what you were hoping, not what impression was created. You were hoping,
yes.
So you wanted Mr. Mokgotsi to persuade the minister to intervene in an operational matter so that Mr. Matlala got paid and you in turn got repaid.
Correct.
All right, so tonight we're asking you, what do you make of Karim's testimony at the Madlanga Commission? You can send us your views on WhatsApp to the number 072-110-5584 or give us a call on 010-594-6010. But also, you have to call, we're still joined by independent crime and violence analyst, that's Dr. Chris de Kock, as well as governance expert, Professor Theo Venter. Gentlemen, thank you very much for staying on. I want to pick up with you, Dr. de Kock. This seems to also highlight the relationship between Kat Matlala as well as Suleiman Carrim, but also Brown Mokgotsi.
Yeah, it actually highlights quite a few things. Because there was another player that was mentioned today, Mr. Mamela, and it seems Mr. Karim, and look, I mean, we are talking about allegations. I'm saying that for the last 6 months before I go on any, I always be very careful because it's one allegation and the other person have another allegation. And in the end, this will have to go through the process and have to go to court and stand in court or fall in court. But the fact of the matter is, it seems he was linked to Kat Malala, and then he was also there. This new player that came on the scene today is Mr. Norman Mamela. I think the name is Norman. I'm a little bit, but it's Mamela.
Morgan.
And then Kat and Mokgotsi, Brown Mokgotsi. So there was a new role player today, and it seems he's linked to all of them, and he see opportunities in their business, and these guys are linked to the Tembisa Hospital, one of the biggest fraud cases that we have ever seen, the case of the Tembisa Hospital, and where the whistleblower were actually killed. Now, there's no evidence that linked them directly to that incident, but there's a lot of allegations again.
Yeah, and let me come to you, Professor Venter, because one of the issues that are at play are whether or not Karim is a credible witness. I mean, we saw him being probed about the 10 million rand and the strategy that he seems to have established, or allegedly established, with Brown Mokgotsi in order to nudge Kat Matlala to start making repayments. But it seems his explanations are not really landing well to the commissioners.
Well, what I saw today was the following kind of design, and that is that Kat Matlala, through his network of influence in especially the East Rand, Ekurhuleni, those areas, the Mbisa Hospital, and so on, had access to a wide array of tenders, as well as well-established links now with senior SAPS officials, really high up in the ranks of the police. Then you've got Brian Mkhotsi. He's not necessarily a big player, but he sells information. He peddles all kinds of information and networks that he's got access to. So he's kind of a facilitator in this whole role. And out of his facilitating role, I guess, he's making money selling information. And then you've got somebody like Karim that seems to be the bank. He bankrolls certain things. Mkhotsi is facilitating, and then Kat Matlala, I think what I heard is that he was bankrolled to the tune of 10 million rand, and he didn't ask any interest or anything. All he wanted was 10 million on top of his 10 million. So that is interesting business that takes place. And then Maumela comes in, like Chris de Kock indicated, and there again, the dots become very close to the inner circles of the ANC, because he is family of President Ramaphosa's first wife. Now, we must mention that Ramaphosa divorced the first wife a long time ago, but so there is some kind of relationship, although the president has indicated that he doesn't know this man from anywhere. But it becomes a very, very close kind of situation. And I think that is what the Commission will have to unpack for us. Who plays what role? And what also came about today was that somebody like Kat Matlala, despite the fact that he's a rich man with a lot of cars and he pays for a lot of things, but even he can run into cash flow problems. And that is where Karim comes in.
Yeah, and Dr. de Kock, you know, one of the things that also came out is the evidence leader saying that one of the many issues that the Commission would have to consider are, you know, money laundering charges against the players here in this matter. Talk to us about that.
Well, if you take it, and again, I say it's allegations, but if you take it that Mr. Karim gives 10 million, and all that he expects, as the professor have already pointed out, he wants to double this 10 million to 20 million. And I can't see, I mean, that already, you know, raises a flag, a red flag. Then also, he doesn't get his money back, but when he gets something back, he's now convinced, even if he doubt, if he ever going to see his money again, he pay, what was it, 500,000? Actually, Kat would want him to pay more, I think, by 750,000 to Mr. Mamela, which is already in trouble. He's already flagged by SARS. So there's to me, there's clearly some indications of money laundering, which is happening, because also money passed from one company to another company to another. I mean, it's really confusing to the ordinary person. Why would you give money to a company that pay another company? And then also another thing is that he was aware that SARS, that Mr. Mamela was already in trouble with SARS, but he gives him this 500,000 rand through Mr. Mamela's sister. He doesn't give it directly to. So there's a lot of interesting financial. I'm not a financial expert myself, but it seems that if you ask any person with financial knowledge, it will be really, there will be lots of questions about how the money flow is happening here.
Yeah, and Professor Venter, Dr. de Kock raises issues around how money allegedly moved. But also another interesting element was the decision to engage with people who you had already read about allegedly being involved in a murder?
Yeah, well, previously I spoke about networks, and I think what the Commission is doing, it's unpacking these networks, and the networks. It seems to me, what we are witnessing is a triangle of three things, and the difficulty is determining who sits at which corner. At the one end, it seems to me what most of these guys have in common, they have an interest in a security company or they own a security company. Then there is an indication that they've got an interest in the taxi business, or at least they own taxis. And then a third thing is there is allegedly some indication of being involved in the trade of illegal arms. It may even be all kinds of illegal goods, such as drugs and so on. And now you can see how these things operate. The security company is necessary to protect your assets. Is it a taxi or is it drugs? The drugs is used to convert into money, cash especially. And then, of course, the question is who is taking what where? And the cash cow in all of this seems to be the big tenders that they're getting from government, and that we've started seeing through the investigations of the Zondo Commission. The flow of money out of the state happens at a level and to amounts that is staggering, to say the least. So this commission comes at a very, very important time to show where not only these triangle, where it sits, but where the police interacts with this triangle, and where different other people interact with this triangle and where they fit in. And then you get people like O'Sullivan that plays a role. You get people like Shadrach Sabia that plays a role. And all of these names are mentioned. The Commission will, in the final instance, tell us who are the guys that are, well, not guilty, but where there is a question mark about, and then eventually recommend to the state president what to do about this. But this is the essence of organized crime that we are seeing.
Yeah, Dr. de Kock, help us contextualize this evidence, everything that we heard today, and how they fall into the overall picture of what the Commission is investigating. Ultimately, it all boils down to the terms of reference and what the Commission is tasked with probing.
Yeah, and I think they clearly stick to their terms of reference, and they are really making headway of getting to grips with the picture how organized criminals, people from the underworld, which on the surface look like a legitimate business, how they infiltrate the South African police service on the one hand at very high level, at a really high level. We're talking lieutenant generals, deputy national commissioner, which lieutenant generals. We talk of major generals and of organized crime units, of the Hawks, and even then forensics, intelligence, and detective service. And then on the other hand, their political connections. And this is, if you read any book, any handbook on organized crime, we have all the elements in this story that is slowly but surely unfolding in the Madlanga Commission. And I must also just emphasize what the professor have said much earlier, and that is that it's not only the room that you see, the hall that you see where this commission is happening, the three commissioners sitting there, the evidence leaders. That is what we see on a daily basis, but South Africa see on a daily basis on our TV screens and on Google and whatever. The fact of the matter is there's a large machinery behind this commission. And I've on various occasions see where evidence is being led, and then the next moment, for example, Advocate Chaskelson will say, But commissioners, I've just received information that is not a coal mine in Richards Bay, it's a terminal, and that Israel have actually no interest in that specific terminal. There's many other companies which have a hand in that terminal. And so we can go on, there's many examples. So clearly, while the commissioner is in motion, there's people behind the screens, analysts, researchers, and legal people, which are getting more and more evidence. So I think here's a nice picture that is going, not a nice picture, it's going to be a bad picture. But at least we will know what is happening in the South African Police Service, in our politics, and organized crime.
Yeah, and Professor Venter, given the picture that has been painted by Dr. de Kock, how do you see, everything unfolding over the coming months? Now that we know that there's been an extension that has been granted, we saw Julius Mkhwanazi coming to the commission today, his testimony also postponed to later this month. In the midst of the concerns of sick notes and the commissioners trying to keep, the ship very, very tight in light of the fact that they still have to stick to the scope of the terms of reference, while there's just so much that is unfolding and so many issues that are at play here.
Yeah, let me first just refer to the sick notes. I've been teaching for a long time in my life, and I've always been a little hesitant about the sick notes because very often they're very handy. And I think this commission gave us something to think about when they started looking into sick notes and determine whether it's valid or not, and whether it's really just a way to get some kicking for touch. If you don't want to go there now, you claim an illness of some kind. One shouldn't joke about it, but I think that is a serious matter. Now, I want to bring in the ad hoc committee here on your question, because this commission responds to the executive, that is the president. They present their document with recommendations, which will include a first interim document, a second interim document, and then a final document with their recommendations. The president then will have to act on it as the executive. The ad hoc committee, they will develop and draw up a document of some kind with recommendations to the legislature, to Parliament. In other words, where the politicians are in Parliament, I think there's an important role for the ad hoc committee to see, and I expect that's what they will be doing, is to draw a much finer line between what a politician can do and what a bureaucrat or an official can do. Because what we've seen over the last 30 years, and this is not something that we haven't seen before, whenever there is an extended regime change, and we've experienced the regime change over the last 30 years, what you will see is that in the beginning, the politicians go too deep into administration because they don't trust the previous officials of the previous government. And then later on, your officials, as they get better trained and they understand the officialdom, let's say the workings of SAPS or the workings of any department, they then go too deep into politics. And that overlap, we have now reached, and the handbooks are telling us, it takes approximately one generation for that situation where the one goes too deep into the other, for it to withdraw to a normal place. We're exactly at that point. We're at that point in our political system where we have to tell politicians get out of administration, and we must tell the administration get out of politics. And you will remember that in both the ad hoc and the Madlanga Commission, the question of the role of the Minister of Police vis-a-vis the role of the Commissioner of Police was debated for hours, and that is part of the problem.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time this evening. Independent crime and violence analyst Dr. Chris de Kock, as well as governance expert Professor Theo Venter, talking to us about what unfolded today at the Madlanga Commission. Certainly interesting times lying ahead. All right.